Ever wonder what it'd be like to, hold millions of years of history in your hands? To, unravel the mysteries beneath our feet, understand the forces that have shaped our planet?
It's a pretty amazing thought, right?
It really is. And it seems you're ready to, well, unearth those possibilities.
Definitely. Especially if you're interested in a career as a geologist, which is what we're diving deep into today, and all based on your interest in RoleCatcher, a career resource website that focuses on this field.
A field that's, well, frankly, more than just a career.
Right. It's like a front row seat to understanding the grand story of Earth.
Okay, I love that. So, RoleCatcher, they define a geologist as someone who, and let me get this right, studies the Earth's composition, structure, and processes.
Yeah, that's the textbook definition. But
Yeah.
honestly, that's just scratching the surface.
Right. It's like saying a detective just looks for clues, which obviously is part of it, but there's so much more to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're talking about deciphering the language of rocks, understanding the forces that create mountains, carve out those amazing canyons.
Oh, and don't forget predicting future events based on the Earth's history.
Exactly. Take the recent earthquake N, insert recent significant earthquake location, for example.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Geologists, they didn't just react to the event after it happened. They used their understanding of fault lines and seismic activity to help communities prepare, hopefully for the aftershocks, and understand what the potential for future events might be.
So it's about piecing together the Earth's story, not just to understand, well, the past, but also the present and the future.
It's all connected.
Which I guess kind of brings up the question, what do geologists actually do on a daily basis? I mean, the source mentions field work, which, okay, sounds exciting and everything, but there must be more to it than just, digging in the dirt, right?
You're right. It's more than just digging in the dirt.
Okay, good.
Although fieldwork is definitely a big part of it.
I can imagine.
Imagine yourself in the remote wilderness, not a lot of people around, just you, a rock hammer, a compass, and your knowledge,
Okay, I'm with you.
collecting samples that could unlock secrets about, like, ancient climates, volcanic eruptions, or even, and this is the exciting part, the origins of life itself.
Okay, that does sound pretty amazing. It's like being a scientific Indiana
There's
Jones.
definitely an element of adventure to it.
But what about the rest of the time? What do geologists do when they're not, out on these epic adventures?
Well, those rock samples, they don't analyze themselves.
That's true.
Geologists, they spend a lot of time in labs using, really cutting-edge technology, stuff like mass spectrometers, electron microscopes, all to analyze the composition of rocks, minerals, really trying to uncover those clues that might not be visible to the naked eye.
Fascinating. So it's like this really cool blend of traditional field work and cutting edge technology. You've
Definitely.
got to have both the adventurous spirit to be out there exploring, but also that analytical mind of a scientist.
Absolutely. And we can't forget about communication.
Oh, right. Of course. You've got to be able to explain what you found.
Exactly. A geologist might be brilliant in the field, amazing in the lab, but if they can't communicate their findings effectively, well,
Their discoveries might never see the light of day.
exactly.
So are you saying that a geologist needs to be a good storyteller too? Someone who can explain those complex scientific concepts in a way that's engaging, easy to understand, whether they're presenting at a conference or writing a report, maybe for policymakers.
Exactly. Think about it. A geologist's research could influence decisions about where to build infrastructure, how to manage, vital natural resources.
Oh, right. Or even how to prepare for natural disasters, like we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. They need to be able to convey the importance of their work to a wide range of audiences. And some of those people, they might not have any kind of scientific background.
Right. So you can't just be talking in jargon all the time. It's about making it real for people.
Exactly. It's about taking those complex ideas and, making them accessible, making them relevant.
So it's not just about the rocks, it's about using your knowledge to make a real-world impact.
100%.
Yeah.
And speaking of impact, let's talk about the job market for geologists.
Okay, yeah. Let's get into that.
It's a field that's, it's constantly evolving,
Right. Like everything else.
shaped by global trends, local demands. It's a really interesting time to be entering the field.
Okay, so let's dig into that a bit. What's the outlook for aspiring geologists? What kind of career paths are we talking about here?
Well, you're entering the field at a fascinating time, that's for sure.
Oh, how so?
Well, on the one hand, you've got this huge demand for traditional resources.
Like oil and gas, that
Yeah,
sort of thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's this big push for renewable energy. So it's kind of like a balancing act right now.
So it's a time of like both challenge and opportunity for geologists.
Exactly. And think about it. The transition to renewable energy sources, things like solar, wind power, it still relies, pretty heavily on geology.
I guess I never thought about it like that.
We need geologists to find suitable locations for wind farms,
Right.
right? Identify areas with high solar potential, even assess like the feasibility of geothermal energy.
Oh, right, geothermal, tapping into the Earth's heat.
Exactly.
It seems like the expertise of geologists is going to be essential in, shaping a more sustainable future.
Mhm.
But with all these changes happening, what does the job market actually look like? I know the source mentioned something about a 5% projected growth in, was it geoscientist employment?
Yeah, that's right. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, they project that growth from 2019 to 2029, which, it's on par with the average for all
Yeah,
occupations.
okay, so not bad.
But remember, that's just a broad projection. The reality is it's way more nuanced. It depends on like what you specialize in, location, even global economic trends.
Right, so you can't just say geology is booming or geology is in decline.
Exactly.
It's about understanding the specific areas where there's demand and, just being prepared to adapt.
100%. Now, RoleCatcher, they highlight a few key areas where geologists are in high demand. For example, environmental geologists.
That makes sense with all the concerns about, climate change and pollution and everything.
Absolutely. They assess and mitigate the impact of, human activity on the environment. Really important work.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
We also see a high demand for hydrogeologists.
What was that again?
Hydrogeologists. They specialize in groundwater.
Oh, okay, got it.
As populations grow, water resources are becoming more scarce.
Right, yeah, water's precious.
Their expertise in locating, managing these groundwater supplies, it's becoming more and more critical.
So it's about, like, using your knowledge of the Earth to solve those real-world problems, finding new energy sources, protecting water resources, things like that.
Exactly. But let's be real, the job market, it can be competitive.
Yeah, that's true for a lot of fields these days.
And that's where RoleCatcher's insights into skills and education, it's really helpful to look at that.
Right, let's talk about that. What do you need to know, to even break into this field?
Well, a strong foundation in, the sciences, that's crucial.
Science and, like, math, too, I'm guessing.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking geology, of course,
Mhm.
but also physics, chemistry, even calculus comes in handy.
Okay, so if you don't like science and math, geology's probably not the best fit.
Probably not. But it goes beyond just textbooks.
What about beyond the textbook? What are some skills that, I don't know, that maybe aren't as obvious?
Well, RoleCatcher really emphasizes critical thinking, problem solving, that kind of stuff.
Makes sense. You're
Mm.
out there, you've got to figure things out.
Exactly. Geologists, they're constantly faced with these like complex challenges. You got to think creatively, got to come up with solutions.
Can you give me an example? Like, what would that look like in the real world?
Okay, so let's say you're a geologist and you're working on a construction project
Okay, I'm with you.
and you're tasked with, assessing the stability of the soil before they can start building.
No, you don't want the building to, like, fall over.
Exactly. So you collect your data, analyze the soil composition, and you realize, uh-oh, there's a risk of landslides here.
Oh, no.
And that's where your critical thinking comes in, not just to identify the problem, but to propose solutions.
Okay, so what do you do?
Maybe you reinforce the slopes.
Yeah.
Maybe you adjust the building design. You got to mitigate those risks.
Wow, so it's a big responsibility. It's not just about, like, understanding rocks.
Right. It's about applying that knowledge, to real-world situations and making decisions that could have a big impact on people's lives.
Definitely high stakes.
And you know what else we can't forget? Communication skills. Essential in any scientific field, really.
Oh, right. Got to be able to talk about what you're doing.
You got to be able to explain those findings, but to different audiences, other scientists, policymakers, even the general public.
Right. So it's not just about, like, writing a scientific paper. You've got to be able to make it understandable for people who aren't scientists.
Exactly. You might be writing a report for a mining company one day, and then the next, you're giving a presentation to a community group about earthquake preparedness.
Wow. So you've really got to be able to, like, adapt your style depending on who you're talking to.
100%. So you're a bit of a scientist, a bit of an engineer, a bit of a communicator. It's a versatile field.
That's a good way to put it. So with education, what do most geologists, like, where do they start?
Well, RoleCatcher, they suggest a bachelor's degree in geology or a related field.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's usually the minimum for entry-level positions. But if you want to specialize or do research, maybe a master's degree or even a doctorate might be necessary.
So for those who are like really passionate about geology, those advanced degrees, they open up a lot more doors.
They do. And don't underestimate internships and research experience,
Mhm.
even while you're still in school.
Yeah, get that practical experience.
Exactly. Gives you a competitive edge. And it helps you build skills that you don't always get in the classroom.
It's about getting your hands dirty, literally, and applying what you've learned. Okay, so let's say you've got the education, you're building your skills. What else can you do to stand out, especially in such a competitive job market?
Well, that's where certifications come in.
Oh, right. Like the ones you mentioned before, the CPG and the RG. Those are kind of like the
The
gold
cert-
standard, right?
They are.
Mhm.
And they can really give you a leg up. The CPG that's offered through the American Institute of Professional Geologists, they really focus on professional ethics, practical experience, and there's a pretty tough exam.
So it's not just about what you know, but how you apply it ethically.
Exactly.
And the RG, that's more about like state-specific licensing.
Exactly. So the requirements, they vary depending on where you want to work.
It's kind of like, getting your driver's license, but for geology.
That's a good way to put it. So you've got to be a competent geologist, ethical, and it really builds that public trust.
Right, because people are relying on your expertise. This has been, wow, really eye-opening.
Glad to hear it.
But before we move on, any advice on how to actually land that dream geology job? Where do you even begin your search?
RoleCatcher. It's a great starting point. They have this huge database of job postings specifically for geologists. Plus, they've got tools to help you tailor your resume, cover letter, all that stuff.
Wow, so they're with you every step of the way.
They really are.
Speaking of which, what about interviews? Any advice on how to ace those?
Be prepared to talk about your passion.
Oh, yeah, of course. You gotta love what you do.
Interviewers want to see that you're genuinely interested in geology, you know? It's not just any job with a science degree.
Right, you're not just checking a box.
Exactly. So be ready to discuss your research, your field work, any projects that you've worked on, anything that shows them, this is what I love to do.
It's about letting your passion shine through.
That's a good way to put it.
And, being able to explain those complex concepts, but in a clear, concise way, that's got to be important.
Oh, absolutely. Practice explaining your research. Some kind of geological concept, but in a way that someone without a scientific background would understand.
But imagine you're explaining it to, like, a friend or a family member who's not a scientist.
Exactly. You might be surprised how often you're going to need that skill. Talking to stakeholders, community members, even potential investors.
So it's about being a geologist who can, like, bridge that gap
Exactly.
between the science and the public,
You got it.
making it accessible to everyone. Okay, this is good stuff. So we've talked about skills, education, all of that. What about, once you're in the field, what's something that can help you succeed?
Networking.
Networking. It's not just for, like, salespeople, right?
No, it's for everyone, especially in a field like geology. It's all about building those relationships, the connections.
Okay, so where do you even start?
Go to conferences, workshops.
Yeah.
There are professional organizations, like the Geological Society of America, the American Geophysical Union.
All right, those are big ones.
And don't be afraid to reach out to geologists you admire, maybe for an informational interview, just to pick their brain.
Oh, that's a good idea.
The geology community is full of passionate people. They're always willing to share their knowledge and experience, especially with those who are eager to learn.
It's about building your own, like, network of mentors and peers who can offer you support, advice, maybe even some job leads.
Exactly. You never know where a connection in the geology world might lead you. Could be a research project, an internship, even your dream job.
So much good advice. This has been incredibly eye-opening. It really is amazing when you think about it. Like, the ground we stand on,
Yeah.
it holds clues to stuff that happened millions, even billions of years ago. I think that's what I'm taking away from this deep dive. It's like the sense of awe,
A sheer scale of geologic time.
Yes, exactly.
And that's the beauty of geology, isn't it?
Yeah.
It constantly challenges how we see things.
Totally.
Reminds us that we're just like this tiny part of something much bigger. This story that's like written in the rocks, the landscapes, all around us.
And it's not just about, looking back in time either, right? It's about using that knowledge to, like, shape the future. We talked about how geologists are involved in finding energy sources, managing water, even, like, predicting those natural disasters and how to, prepare for them.
Exactly. Think about the impact,
Mm.
A geologist might be advising governments on how to protect our coastlines, or helping communities get ready for earthquakes, or leading the way in developing some new technology to, I don't know, clean up pollution or something.
It's a career that's like, it's more than just a job. It's about making a
It
difference.
really is.
And that brings us back to you, dear listener.
That's right.
We've covered a lot today. The basics of geology, the skills you need, the education, all that stuff.
But the biggest question really is,
What sparks your curiosity?
exactly, what kind of impact do you want to make?
Do you imagine yourself out there in the field, exploring those remote places? Or maybe in a lab analyzing data, making those groundbreaking discoveries?
Maybe you want to communicate complex science to, I don't know, to the public.
Right. Or use your knowledge to advocate for better policies, more sustainable practices, all that good stuff.
There's so many paths you can take.
But whatever you choose, just remember, geology, it's a journey.
Lifelong learning, always discovering something new.
You got it.
Asking those questions, challenging assumptions, always trying to understand those forces that shape our planet, that shape our lives.
It's pretty incredible when you think about it. So keep exploring, keep learning, and hey, who knows? Maybe you'll be the one to make the next big discovery.
Unearth a brand new chapter in the story of Earth.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's all for today's deep dive. We hope you enjoyed exploring the world of geology with us.
It's been fun,
Until next time, keep those rock hammers handy.
and never stop asking questions.